I'm your host, Jan Johnson, with Women of the Northwest, where I get to interview ordinary women leading extraordinary lives. And today I get to interview Melissa Grothe. Hello, Melissa.
Hi, Jan. Thanks for having me.
We're talking about all these amazing things that you've done and gotten you to where you are as a fairly young person.
Yeah. I like to think I'm still young.
Yeah. So you've been president of the Astoria Regatta. You've got a strong interest of traveling to all the national parks.
Yeah.
President of North Oregon Regional Council. President of the Teachers Union. You're on the Oregon Education Committee and went to a conference for women and minority. You are in the PEO group, and you right now teach 4th grade at Lewis and Clark. Whoa, so welcome.
Thank you.
Well, let's see. Where do we start? How about let's start with national parks.
Okay.
Tell me what your motivation is, or what just makes your heart sing about that.
Oh my gosh. Honestly, everything. I would describe myself as a park junkie. My goal is to visit all of the major national parks, of which there are, I think, currently 63. It's hard to keep track. They keep adding them on, so it makes
that's a good thing.
It is good, but it makes my checklist harder to accomplish. For every one I check off, another one seems to get added. But I also like visiting the smaller sites as well, like national historic sites or monuments and things like that. I just am really passionate about history, about nature, and getting to see like just the absolutely incredible things that we have here in the United States that are often sometimes overlooked.
Mm-hmm.
People often, I think, focus on what the like big expensive adventure can be.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm kind of a fan of the opposite, where we show up in the car and pitch a tent and sleep under the stars out in the middle of nature. And so I just love being able to go and explore and take hikes and just learn about the environment, the animals, the plant life, all of it is just incredibly, incredibly interesting to me. And I don't know, I'm just obsessed.
What are some of the places you've been?
Oh my gosh. We just spent some time in Acadia National Park this last summer during a 2-week trip to Maine. We spent like 5 days total in Acadia, and that was fantastic. I'd been before, but this trip was just longer and more in depth, and was just it reminded me a lot of Astoria. In a way. It's just like the lobster version of Astoria. And the Oregon coast, like the big craggy cliffs, and beaches and lighthouses. And so it was kind of like almost a home away from home, but snow in the wintertime. So that was the one thing I was like, I could live here minus the snow.
So have you done any blogging about your trips?
I have a little bit. I actually blogged, oh my gosh, this year, or this last summer, I did a blog website. It was like Adventures with Ms. Grothe that because my students knew I was going on this road trip and that I would be spending time in parks along the way.
Yeah.
And they were they were like, we want to see photos. And so I created a website for them so that they and their families could follow along, and friends and families, my friends and family followed along too, which was fun. It was a good way to, keep in touch that way for them to be able to share in our adventures. And we did Acadia and like Grand Teton. We spent time in, we did a day trip up in northern Minnesota to Voyageurs National Park, kind of all over the place, but it was lots of fun. So, yeah. And
where's your next one going to be?
Next national park to be determined still, actually. Our summer goal this year is Ireland, which isn't a national park necessarily. Maybe we'll have to visit some national parks in Ireland. But as far as parks here in the U.S., up in the air at the moment.
Okay. Yeah, you just need a big bin of names and
It's
draw
true.
random, do random.
Yeah,
Draw.
I know. Like, I mean, really, like throw a dart at the map would work because I'd go anywhere, basically.
Yeah. Southwest.
We actually did that summer of 2019.
Okay.
And that was probably one of the coolest trips simply because
It's so
the
different.
Southwest is so different than
Yeah.
the Pacific Northwest. Like it is night and day. And we visited Mesa Verde National Park, which is
amazing,
easily in my top 3. And
Yeah.
it's really hard for me to rank parks because it's like apples and oranges when you
Right.
compare them because they're all so unique and different. But Mesa Verde is definitely somewhere at the
Yeah.
very top because it was very surreal. And in a way, almost like a spiritual experience, like recognizing the indigenous people that still live in that area. And I really appreciated our tour guide when we went through the cliff dwellings that our tour guide was so good about acknowledging that as well, that like there's, this is a sacred place and was and still is for the people that lived there and now their descendants that are still around. And so it was so moving to be able to walk through that space and just be in awe of their architecture and
what they could do.
Yeah. And I'm thinking like, oh my word, like they built these incredible homes that are still standing today. And if you asked me to build anything,
and I might last,
it would never, like
a bucket of water.
I would never survive. Never, ever survive.
I guess
so it's just,
but that's my old stomping ground.
It's just,
it's amazing.
A different kind of beauty. So I really appreciated it. Yeah.
And I would guess that some of that stuff reaches over into your teaching.
So much.
Yeah. What kind of things have you done with your classroom?
My gosh. Well, from our trip this last summer, we drove through Wyoming, like I said, and stopped in Grand Teton. But then we also stopped at Devil's Tower, which they are sort of in the process of like kind of changing up the name, since Devil's Tower is like the settlers' name for it, returning it back more towards the indigenous groups and their name. They often call it like Bear Tower, because of the ancient myth that they have of the bear clawing the side of the rocks, leaving these gouges in the rock. But it was really neat this year during my earth science unit when we were talking about volcanoes, because I was able to then pull up photos of our trip and photos of this tower that is really actually part of an ancient volcano. So and it was something that we'd read about and studied in class, and the kids were so excited. They're like, have you been there? And I was like, yeah, actually, hang on. Let me find my phone and find some photos for you. I'm like, scroll, here, look it. And they're just, they thought it was so cool. And it's neat to be able to expose kids to that, because I find in Clatsop County that sometimes kids are not that well traveled. And obviously COVID the last couple of years in education has impacted everybody's ability to travel, but still there's a lot of kids and families that don't really leave the Pacific Northwest, and they stay pretty close to home. So being able to share what else is out there in the world with them is fun for me, because they get so excited.
And it's because you have the actual connection to having been there. It's not like just watching some video of something.
Exactly. Like I can tell them the story and say like, hey, when I was there, I saw, or we did, or like
I talked to.
Yeah. Having the experience is so valuable for them to be able to connect. And it's fun to see them light up and get excited about it.
And I'm going to guess that that's going to rub off on them later on, that they're going to want to be national parks kids.
I hope so. That's my goal. Fourth grade is the best in my opinion. Really strong bias there, but it's actually the grade that has the program for every kid. It was called Every Kid in a Park, but now it's like Every Kid Outdoors. They get free national parks passes to use during their fourth grade year. And it's like what I hand out during orientation open house day to families. I'm like, and here is your free pass for your child. It's worth $80 to everybody else.
Yeah.
Use it.
Yeah.
You would be crazy not to.
Yeah.
So,
didn't you decorate your room like a national park too? Tell me about that.
oh my gosh. There's this, probably I don't know if it's a trend. I think it's a fun trend in teaching where you essentially make over your room based on like a unit that you're doing or something that you're studying in particular. And so I have been doing a national park unit for a handful of years where everything, reading, math, science, social studies is all connected to parks, which I can fortunately make work with fourth grade teaching standards.
Right.
I'm very fortunate that way. And so I was like, I'm going to try this whole like room flip thing and I'm going to go for it. And well, what's the worst that's going to happen? You know, like it's not going to be a bad thing. It can only be something sort of good.
Right.
And I ended up like recruiting people to let me borrow their fake Christmas trees. I mean, oh my goodness.
Did you set up a tent?
I did. I brought in my tent. I had like a cooler and camp chairs.
Yeah.
I think I had probably like 5 or 6 full-size Christmas trees and then a bunch of like smaller ones set up around the room.
And a bear cub.
I have a little tiny stuffed bear. My cousin's wife works for one of the forestry groups here in the area, and her group was actually able to donate trees to all of the students. So they all got little saplings, and then I used those in the room as well. Desks were transformed into picnic tables. You know,
sounds like fun.
Lots of butcher paper that I carefully take down and roll up now every year because I, you know, being someone who cares about the environment feels bad about like just recycling it after every year. So I like save it all and label it all and keep it somewhere, you know, so that it's ready to go for next year. And
making
it's so much fun.
I bet there were fun things for them to write about.
Oh yeah. They all got to pick parks and do research. They all wrote to their park of choice to like ask for information, and they were getting brochures in the mail. And so they were really excited to be getting mail because I think we're all suckers to get good mail, you know, not bills.
Right, exactly. How fun is that?
It was a great, like real life hands-on experience for them too. And just,
so I'm going to guess too, that as you were doing it, you had as much fun putting it all together as seeing the end product.
Yes, totally. Like it's fun to get creative in that way. And I like to think of myself as creative, not necessarily artistic. So I don't know, like there's like a difference for me. I have lots of great ideas. I can't always play them out. So fortunately I have a wonderful village that surrounds me and my classroom that are willing to help out. Like my parents come in on a regular basis and help staple things to walls and help me climb ladders, or, you know, like Jake is great about helping me haul stuff out to school and unload a half a dozen Christmas trees into my classroom. But
I think besides the kids being inspired, it's the parents and your co-workers as well too. I find inspiration from what you do.
That's my goal. It's just to, I don't know. Like I always feel like, you know, doing my best, and then like, what can I do to be better? And I work with really awesome people that push me as well, that I'm like, oh man, they're doing really cool stuff. Yeah. Like I can't settle and just sit here and twiddle my thumbs. I got to like up my game too. So it's
the challenge is on.
It is. Yeah. It is. It's like a challenge.
There's so much more to teaching than just a textbook or whatever.
So much more.
Droning on. I mean, I always felt like if there was a way to make this real, let's do it.
Yes,
you know, if we can,
exactly.
Yeah, create the environment, made it.
Oh man, and it's all. I mean, I feel like this year especially, it's been a lot of this, like a lot of conversation, and having conversations with kids because life is so weird for them right now.
A lot of questions,
and they're at that age that they are starting to notice things around them and notice the world around them, and they have questions. So we talk about it, you know, we have good conversations, and they are always just like, ready, like leaned in, listening, so.
And isn't that a great opportunity to teach them evaluative skills, or how to figure out what's truth and what isn't, and
Exactly.
how to make good opinions and things.
It's a conversation all the time. Like I had a student ask, well, can I just use Wikipedia? And I said, Wikipedia can be very useful.
Yeah.
I myself use Wikipedia. Just make sure you double check other sources to make sure it is accurate information, because technically I could write Wikipedia if I wanted to and make it say what I wanted, even if I wasn't right. And they were like, oh, okay. Like they don't realize those things yet. So it's a great chance to kind of open their eyes and like have them take the chance to like seek out sources, and look at things from different perspectives, because they're building that empathy and compassion, that younger kids are often self-centered simply because developmentally that's where their brains are. I think kids go through the me, mine, learning to share stage, because it is literally a step in child development. And by the time they get to me in 4th grade, they're at that age that they get to start looking past themselves a little bit and start realizing like, oh, what I do actually has an impact on others.
Right.
And so that's been a lot of conversation lately as well. Just recognizing that, you could do that, but how is someone else going to feel about it?
And I think too, you've got the perfect position to, you're involved in a lot of different councils or basically in a political sense, when you're in organizations like that, but all of them involve thinking of outside of yourself, thinking of the community and whatever. So I think that is a natural thing for you to be teaching your kids in your conversations, as well as, what can you see out there that needs to be done? How can we go about doing that?
Yeah. No, that's exactly it.
Make a change.
That's exactly it.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's kind of a joke. Our mutual friend, Lori, gave me a magnet at one point that says, "Stop me before I volunteer again." And it's got this blonde lady
Just
on the magnet.
No.
Yeah, it is. It's like one of those. It's got this blonde lady. And she got it when she was on a trip somewhere. And she said, "I saw this and thought, this is Melissa." Because I'm constantly like, yeah, I can do that. Yeah, I can help with that. Yeah, that's doable.
Yeah, I know that person. You're a little type A.
Yeah, A+.
Yeah. Yeah, I know that person.
Yeah.
So tell me about Astoria Regatta.
Oh my gosh.
Not everybody understands about what that is like and who. We have people in Washington, Oregon. Actually, we have people all over the world that are listening to this. This is an international audience. So tell us about Regatta.
So the Astoria Regatta Festival started, oh my gosh, in the late 1800s. It was this big celebration of the fishermen returning from salmon season and celebrating essentially like this big influx into the community, since we were a community that was largely built and founded on the fishing industry. And so it's like possibly, we're not 100% sure, but one of the oldest festivals like west of the Rocky Mountains. And we are the oldest in Oregon, which is really cool.
Yeah.
We just before COVID celebrated our 125th festival, which is really awesome.
Yeah.
The last couple of years we've had to do some smaller things just because COVID, very, very minimal. But we're excited this year to have the entire festival back and keep just celebrating our community. And I got involved with Regatta when I was a junior in high school. As a representative of Astoria High School, I was on the Regatta Court, which is a group of young women ambassadors that represent their school, but also just represent our county and our community to the public and work in different like community service roles. They volunteer for different activities. They build their public speaking skills. They go through a mentorship program with with women in our community, often tied to whatever it is that they're interested in, so if they express interest in going into the medical field, we'll try and connect them with a mentor who is in the medical field.
What qualifies a person to be able to be on the court?
Oh, good question. We are simply looking for people who they're motivated. That helps. Just because it's, not always, but like just balancing the schedule of regatta with the rest of your life can be challenging. So they have to be someone who's pretty on top of things. We're looking for someone who's wants to be involved, wants to make a difference, wants to be a role model, because growing up, I have attended, I don't even know how many regatta parades as a kid. And I always remember seeing those people on the float and thinking, oh, like they, like I want to grow up and be like them, and
with the parade way.
And not even like in the sense of just like being a princess, because I've never really been that kind of I was never like a princess girl growing up. But like just being involved and being like a part of something. And so we're constantly seeking applicants. This year we did juniors and seniors, since we didn't have a court last year because of COVID, but normally we recruit juniors in high school that are ready to jump in with both feet and get involved in their community. So,
and how many girls?
Usually 4-ish. We have, I think, 5 this year, just because we had some really great applicants that were like, oh my gosh. There were some applicants that I was like, I don't know why I'm interviewing you. Like, you should be interviewing me, because your resume is way better than mine. Which is so great to see, though. Like, it's fun to be now on this side of the table, so to speak, in the interviews, because now I get to see this next generation of young women coming up that are going to be leaders.
That's hopeful.
Yeah, it is. It's so encouraging and so hopeful. And I just am like, oh my gosh, they're doing great things now. They're so interesting and cool now with what they're doing.
Yeah, it can only get better.
It's only going to be uphill for them. There's just it's only going up, because they're involved in so many great things already and so passionate about stuff already that I'm like, oh my gosh.
And you're going to have to send some to me, because it sounds like they'd be great interviews for your podcast.
Yeah. So I've been involved on the board side of the festival since 2016. My former court chaperone actually was on the board, and she recruited me to be involved and get involved as the secretary way back in the day there. And so I served in that role for a handful of years before I was asked to be our vice president. And then last year I was technically the president, but we didn't have like a real festival. So I am the official president of bringing back the regatta after COVID.
Whoa,
so
I can do this.
Yeah.
What are the things like? What are the things that make you think you can do that? I mean,
that implies that I think that I can do this.
It's not meant to be like, no. Why do you think you could do that?
No, I don't. No.
but really, and what does it take to be able to be a woman who can step out and say, hey, I can do that?
Great question. Definitely the backing of my fellow board members that, like our past president that I served as vice president under had asked me if I, had said, I'd like you to take on the next president's role. And I just flat out said, like, because I was vice president, or because you actually think that I can do this? Because there's a difference, there's such a difference. And he was like, no, like, you got this. And I was like, oh, I don't know what you see, but no, I think it just takes organization, needing to like, I am fortunate. We have an incredible checklist. It is literally a year of items that I work through. Like I've been working through the February list of things that I have to accomplish, and I have a great team around me. We have active, involved board members that want to, see this come through. We have great contractors that we're working with to tackle things that we don't have the bandwidth or the skill necessarily to do
Mm-hmm.
the best work at,
Mm-hmm.
as far as like marketing and website and things like that.
Right. Mm-hmm.
I know that's not my strength.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So we work with people that are just on it and can
Mm-hmm.
take care of things like that for us, and being able to say like, okay, I know I'm responsible for this item, but I need someone to cover A, B, and C.
Yeah.
And just putting it out there and not taking no for an answer when people sit there and don't volunteer. And I'm like, no, but seriously, who's going to do it?
Right.
Because I can't do it all.
Right.
So,
right. Because it has to be a team to do any kind of a big thing. Needs to be a team.
An entire it's like a 4-day festival. It requires
right. Exactly.
like legitimate legwork and lots of
what are
conversations.
Some of the challenges?
Oh my gosh, raising funds.
Mm-hmm.
That is, it's not cheap to throw a festival for the community.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't come free, and so it takes some serious legwork. We have a committee that is responsible for that, that go out and talk with local businesses, local business owners, community members that have, capital to be able to help with that. We publish like scholarship letters out, reaching out to people to donate, either because we have two buckets of money, so to speak. There's the festival bucket, but then there's our scholarship bucket as well for our court members. And so it's been kind of a team effort then between both groups, trying to fundraise and have the funds that we need to support these young women in their future endeavors through scholarship. But then also to be able to host this giant festival. And I mean, like, people don't think about it, but it's like, you have to think about things like renting porta potties for downtown. I've never thought about renting a porta potty in my life until I joined Regatta. Right. And so it's like all these little things that you're like, oh yeah, someone had to do that. It had to come from somewhere. And so I think that's one thing that people,
even just the garbage afterwards. And
and that's things that people don't think about. They're, they show up to the parade, they get the candy, and they go home, and they're like, yay, Regatta happened. And you're like, but also we started planning for that in December. It's taken us like 7 to 8 months to make that happen.
And what about, you said the girls speak or practice speaking. Tell me about that.
So they are all given speech topics that usually connect somehow to the region and our history, or connect to the theme of the festival for the year. And then they research, write their own speeches, and then start presenting them. They get to present them, of course, to our Regatta board, which is fun to see, like basically their first ever presentation, because then they'll do those same speeches on coronation night on the first night of Regatta. And that is part of their score for who becomes the queen. Gets it comes down to getting a larger scholarship, because you end up serving more time with Regatta. And so it's fun to see them going from beginning to end, but then there's the in-between where they have to practice somewhere. And practicing to the bathroom mirror isn't as effective as practicing in front of groups. And so we have been struggling, especially the last handful of years, to find organizations that want to host the speeches and host our court in order to let them present their speeches and practice, just because community organizations are not as active, it feels like,
that they were
as they used to be.
If somebody listening to this had an idea for Girls That Speak At, how could they contact you? Go to our website, AstoriaRegatta.com, click on literally the button for the court, and or you could just email AstoriaRegattaAssociation@gmail.com. You'll get me, and I will send your email to the person that schedules them. Done and done. I'll put a link to that in. Yes, please. In the show notes. That'd be awesome. It's gonna be, I think, a fun. That is our goal this year, is just to have fun, because it's been the 2 years of Of not fun.
Not fun. Yeah, like it's been a really lame last 2 years as far as community celebrations go, which is no one's fault. It's just, you know, the facts of life right now. And so our theme is actually Regatta, Just Want to Have Fun. A play on Cyndi Lauper's song. Yeah, you know, and so we came up, like, it was my job as president to create speech topics for them. And so it's all about different ways that you can have fun and recreate in Clatsop County, but historically and in modern day. So like one of the gals will be speaking on outdoor recreation specifically versus what do you do on a rainy day? Because, you know, we have lots of those.
Did you, I don't know if you had a chance to listen to Lori Serafin's podcast.
I haven't, but
so she with the Forstrom house.
Yes, Queen Allie Forstrom.
That's right.
Yeah,
Queen Allie. She's got.
Oh, I know. I manage the Regatta social media, and we follow Lori on social media so we can keep up with the progress on the house, and because of that awesome tie to Regatta, so it's just been fun. And Lori has been good about, you know, giving us some likes and thumbs up on things that we post too, which I appreciate, and sending us photos when we were looking for like historical photos of past courts or past regatta queens. And so super fun. It's been a fun adventure to say the least, but it's definitely a challenge trying to just keep up, you know, and like, I feel like in a way we're starting from scratch, even though I know we're not. It can be a challenge to find volunteers, like day of, like when you need to actually like have someone doing the manual labor during the festival. Our board just isn't large enough. I mean, there's like 10 to 12 people usually on the board, but when you're running multiple events during a day, you can't be everywhere at once.
Right.
And in my role this year as president, historically, I kind of have been the chaperone during Regatta Week, where I just take care of getting the court where they need to be for their events.
And that's a big job and time consuming. Yeah,
exactly. And in my role as secretary on the board, that was fine. I didn't have any like official other duties. So like just be present. So I was
maybe the secretary needs to take over.
I know
what you were doing before,
because I will actually have to be present at things and actually do a job and have a role this time instead of being in the background. So I'll have to brush up on my public speaking skills too.
Oh, that sounds like so much fun.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to ask you 2 more questions.
Okay.
One, what brings you joy?
Ooh. So many things. It's like hard to, I don't know, life in general, like just
organizing.
It does. Like purging things and cleaning things out and organizing, and then, you know, but no, honestly, like spending time with, you know, like with Jake and being able to travel is something that we can do right now. And just, even if it's like a small trip, you know, like if we do a day trip somewhere, that just is honestly just, that's what it takes. Like, that's what I need. To give myself a break.
Refresh and fill up.
Exactly. Just to like give myself time from all those other things that I'm doing. And to help keep a healthy relationship, like being able to have that opportunity together to talk and just, you know, be, and because we're both busy. And so,
and you do need to step back and be able to refresh. You got to fill your cup again.
Exactly.
You can't keep, you know, emptying it out for other people without filling
you can't
it up
pour from an empty vessel. So I just appreciate like, and his understanding of that, like that he knows I'm busy, and he's involved in a lot of things too. So we keep kind of wild schedules, but that opportunity when we get to just spend time, whatever it is, just the two of us hanging out and enjoying each other's company, wherever that might be, often exploring something new, hiking, whatever it is that is just like, oh man, like,
it's like
any, like the world could literally be crumbling around me, but it's okay because
I've got my park.
I've got this other thing going on that is
Yeah.
like that brings me so much peace and happiness.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah. Fun. Well, I'm sure this is going to be a long time from now, but when you're 80 or 90 or 100, what do you want people to say about you at your funeral?
Oh man. That's tough. We just had a funeral for my grandfather who passed a few weeks back.
Yeah.
And the number one thing that everyone said about him was that he was so incredibly humble. And that is probably the biggest thing that I admired about him myself, both as a child growing up and as an adult. I've had the privilege of living basically in the same area as him most of my life. And so I don't know. When I do things, I don't do them. I don't hold my role as president of anything because I think it's important that I'm the president or that I have this title. But like I said, like when I was asked if I wanted to be the president of Regatta, it wasn't because I didn't say yes because I thought I deserve to be this.
Right. Yeah.
I don't want, that's the last thing and the farthest thing from my brain when I say yes to doing things or helping with stuff, that it's just like, there are roles that need to be filled. I happen to have some abilities that will help with that role. And so I just do it. I don't know. So I'd love if people would say the same thing about me someday, that I just served and did it, because it was the right thing to do, not because I wanted the attention or the power or the glory for it. Because that is not in any way, shape, or form
not necessarily glorious things.
No. Ordering porta potties is really actually not that glamorous.
Otherwise, there would be a lot more people going, pick me.
Yeah, I wouldn't be begging for volunteers. So, in theory, if down the road people would just, maybe notice that I'd done some stuff and that it wasn't for my own, feather in my cap or anything like that. Because I don't know. I use the gifts that I have been given and the talents that I have to help where things need to be taken care of, or to serve in ways that I know I can make a difference for other people. Yeah. So
that's awesome. Yeah. That's awesome. All right. Well, we're going to have to wrap this up. Thank you for being here and joining me today. This was a lot of fun.
It was. It's nice to see a former coworker.
I know. All right. Thank you, Melissa.
Thank you, Jan.